Righto guys, welcome to Creepers, Cryptid and Paranormal Corner. Episode 7 today is going to be about Burragorang Valley. The missus, the kids and I did a quick trip up there a couple of weeks ago. We did see a few odd things around there, but there wasn't enough footage to put a video together, so I actually thought I'd do an episode just on the valley itself. The day we done the trip up there, it started to piss down rain and there was a little bit going on, but you can't really do much exploring up there as all the land around the lookout's actually waterboard. So it's illegal to go in there and you get fines and you can get arrested and stuff like that. We did actually see a big cross near the lookout. Two massive trees. It was way too big for any people to do it trying to be silly or that. Like, that was really odd. I got a bit of footage of that, but I might put that up at the end of the podcast so you can have a look and see what you reckon. But it was pretty boring. Like, you couldn't see much of the valley as it was raining. It was all foggy and stuff like that. But it was pretty good to get up there with the kids and show them around. And yeah, so I thought I'd do a quick podcast on the valley, do a bit of the history, a bit of the stats on the valley and stuff like that, and I'll see what you guys think. Cheers. So down in Burragorang Valley, you've got Lake Burragorang. It's actually part of Sydney's water catchment, and it's fed by the Nadai River, the Cox River, the Wingecarribee River, Wallandilly and the Warragamba Rivers, and it's impounded by Warragamba Dam. At 100%, it actually holds a whopping 2,000 gigalitres, which for anyone that's familiar with Sydney Harbour is actually estimated to be able to fill Sydney Harbour around 8 times. That's just wild. The surface area of the lake is just over 65 square kilometres, and the length of the lake stretches a whopping 52 kilometres. With Lake Burragorang being a water catchment, most of the bushland around it is an exclusion zone. If you're caught in these areas, it carries around a $50,000 fine and actually can include jail time. This is just to try and keep the drinking water safer, I guess. Some of the closely surrounding towns to the Burragorang Valley and Lake Burragorang are Katoomba, Wentworth Falls, Warragamba, Oakdale, Nadai, Thelmy, Buxton and Hilltop. There's plenty other towns around there, but these ones seem to be the closest. Now we've got the boring stuff out of the way, let's get into a bit of the history of the valley. There's actually a few definitions of the name Burragorang Valley. The white people's definition is made up of a few words of burrow, meaning kangaroo, or baroon, meaning small animal, and gang, meaning to hunt, which can be translated to place to hunt kangaroo or small animals. But with the Aboriginals, their meaning for Burragorang is actually home of the giant kangaroo. The Gundagara people were the indigenous tribe that lived in the valley and were said to inhabit the valley for over 40,000 years before white people started to move into the valley around the 1800s. The first white man to find the valley was actually George Bass. He found it and actually abseiled into the valley in 1796. So as I was saying, white people started to move in the valley in the early 1800s. The population grew pretty quickly. There's farms, houses, post offices and even churches scattered throughout the valley. White people lived alongside the Gundagara people for many years, and a lot of other families started to visit the valley for holidays or work on the farms or in some of the local mines. It was actually one of the only areas where Indigenous people and white people lived side by side peacefully. And some of the first Indigenous people to successfully claim a bit of land were from Burragorang Valley. A lot of the Indigenous people left the valley, and the ones that stayed around were relocated in the 1940s and 50s to start getting ready to create Warragamba Dam. So the plan was to build Warragamba Dam, and those previous rivers I was talking about would actually be dammed up by Warragamba and turn Lake Burragorang into Sydney's water source for their growing population. By the late 1950s, the 160 remaining residents were moved out either because their land was going to be underwater or the road access to their property on the other side of the valley would actually be lost and they wouldn't be able to get there. There was many protests, petitions and cases at court to stop the building of Warragamba Dam, and even after all that, it fell on deaf ears and the dam was built and the valley was lost. All the buildings, the farms, the houses, the churches, the post office were all demolished, and eventually the water of these rivers eventually swallowed the valley forever. In the droughts, when we've had the droughts and stuff, you've been able to go up to Burragorang, look out, and every now and then you'd see a part of an old church or an old building in that. Like, they weren't completely demolished, but they got rid of most of them, most of the trees out of the area to make this, like, turn it into Lake Burragorang. To this day, Burragorang Valley is actually surrounded by World Heritage listed forests. There's cave paintings in there that go back 50 to 60,000 years, which actually is actually longer than the Gundagara people are known to live in the valley. So whether they've been there longer and done these paintings back then, or maybe different tribes that actually travelled in from different parts of the Blue Mountains or the South Coast or something actually did these paintings, I'm not too sure. But I know they're actually there, and yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. And the valley's actually filled with endangered flora and fauna that only actually exists in Burragorang Valley, nowhere else in the whole world. Sadly, they want to raise the dam wall another 14 metres, which would actually wipe out a lot of the very fragile ecosystem that survived the initial flooding of the valley and endanger the World Heritage listing, and more importantly, the extremely unique and endangered flora and fauna. I hope they actually change their minds about this. We've lost enough of our native flora and fauna over the years already, like, let alone losing even more, and how much history of Aboriginal heritage and culture that's been lost already. Losing more sacred cave paintings and any other sort of artefacts than that could actually be found in there is really upsetting. Now after that, depressing rant, on with the fun stuff. Cryptids, ghosts, big cats, UFOs, and plenty myths and legends reside around the Burragorang Valley. For many years, all around Burragorang Valley, big cats have been reported, whether they've been encountered in properties that back onto the bushland surrounding, or the many reports of the coal mine and truck drivers carting coal out of the mines in Nadai, seeing them nearly every day. One of my big cat encounters was not far from Burragorang Valley at all. Stories of the Yowies, Bunyip, from people that lived in the valley before the dam, and even recent reports around the valley. The Blue Mountains is arguably the Yowie Central of Australia, and it backs straight onto the western side of the valley. My Yowie encounter from previous episodes, when I got bluff charged, actually wouldn't be surprised if that creature had actually come from Burragorang Valley and had actually escaped the massive fires New South Wales were copping at that time. I actually have a few relatives that both had an encounter with a Yowie the same night on two separate occasions, about 10 to 15 minutes apart, within a stone's throw of the valley. Even after how much of the valley was flooded when they made the dam, you would not believe how much untouched wilderness there still is up there for creatures to survive and not be found. If there was actually Tasmanian tigers left on the mainland of Australia, Burragorang Valley would be one of the first places I'd go looking for them. The amount of UFO sightings around this valley too is just mind-boggling. People actually seeing lights coming out of the valley at night. People reporting seeing flying crafts around the valley in the daytime even. I know a family member that's told me about a time he was walking home at night near the valley, and all of a sudden he actually had a spotlight shined on him from above. When he looked up, he thought it was a police helicopter or something. He realised he couldn't hear a noise, and when the spotlight turned off and you'd see the lights on the craft actually take off, and he said it took off faster than any plane or helicopter he's ever seen, and there was absolutely no noise at all. And he basically watched it until it went out of sight over the bush line that went to Burragorang Valley, so over the water catchment. I've been to a spot that overlooks the water of the valley at night as well with mates, and we witnessed a few times orange lights or orbs coming up out of the water, and they'd sit there for a few seconds about a foot off the water, and all of a sudden they just shoot up into the sky and out of sight, like you'd lose them in the stars eventually. It was crazy. Like we've seen that a few times, but I've actually seen a few more things like that out there that way too, but I'll put them all together in an episode one day in the future. You'd actually go on all night about the UFO or UAP sightings around the valley. It's just crazy. Some of the ghost stories around the valley as well, the sightings of truck drivers in the surrounding roads to the valley coming out of some of the mines down there. There's a road up there, it's called the Bluff, and it actually goes right down nearly to the water where one of the old coal mines were. A few truck drivers and that died over the years. They'd actually fell off the cliff in their trucks because it was really narrow and stuff like that, and there was reports of them seeing people, some of them seeing beings and ghosts and spirits, whatever you want to call them, cruising there. People actually have seen them cruising through the bush, floating around, and that in the valley also. Like, it's just crazy up there. I'm sure you encounter some form of ghost or spirit, or even a cryptid, Yowie, Bunyip, even the dog man or big cats and that. if you went and stayed, there's actually an abandoned mining town. It's called Urandri. You can actually go down there and camp there. There's no power or stuff like that. You can camp around the old buildings and that. I wouldn't be surprised if you went down there on a trip and had some sort of encounter with something. I'm going to take my family down there one weekend. I reckon it would be really cool, even if it's just to get away for the weekend. No power, no phones, no service, nothing like that. Just a bit of good camping and have a bit of fun. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the quick little episode I put together. Before I say goodbye on the episode, I'll put the video up of that cross I found and see what you reckon. Let me know if you think it might be man-made or not. I don't think it is. It's pretty big and pretty heavy. I don't think people would have just done that there for shits and giggles and trying to trick people. But anyway, guys, sorry I've dragged it on a bit. It was really interesting learning a few things about the valley I didn't actually know already. Hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to like and share. And even if it's just for family that might not know some of the history about the valley, and if you haven't already, I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel. The next episode I'm going to be doing will be the first time I get a guest on the show or the podcast and have a chat with them. So keep your ears out for that one. But until next time, guys, keep safe out there. Cheers.